The clock on the wall struck 11 p.m., and the cafe was nearly empty. The smell of roasted coffee beans lingered in the air as Emma Collins wiped the last table with a sigh. It had been another long, quiet evening at Hazel's Corner Café, her small coffee shop tucked on a peaceful street corner in the city. The neon sign outside flickered softly, open, though she was just about to turn it off. Emma loved her cafe. It wasn't just her job, it was her escape. After losing her parents in a car accident 3 years ago, this little place became her way to keep going. It reminded her of the warmth, love, and stories they used to share over cups of coffee. She glanced at the clock again and whispered to herself, "Just 10 more minutes and I'm done." As she reached for her apron's pocket to pull out the keys, the door suddenly opened. The soft bell above the entrance chimed. A tall man stepped inside, his black coat soaked from the rain. His hair, dark and slightly messy, fell over his forehead. He looked exhausted, like someone carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. "Sorry, we're actually closing," Emma started, trying to smile politely. The man looked up, his eyes deep and tired but kind. "Just one last coffee," he said quietly. "Please." Something in his voice made her pause. It wasn't just a request. It sounded like a plea. Emma hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "All right, take a seat. What would you like?" He exhaled, almost in relief, and sat near the window. "Black coffee, no sugar." As she prepared the drink, she kept glancing at him. He was wearing a tailored suit, expensive shoes, and a wristwatch that probably cost more than her rent. He didn't seem like the type to stop by small cafes like hers, especially this late. Something about him didn't fit. When she brought his cup to the table, he looked up and gave a faint smile. "Thank you." "You're welcome," Emma replied, placing it down. "Rough day." He gave a small laugh, though there was no joy in it. "You could say that." For a moment, silence filled the room, only the rain tapping against the window and the quiet hum of the espresso machine. Then, he spoke again, softly. "I used to come to cafes like this with my wife," he said. Before she passed away, Emma froze, her heart tightening. She didn't expect that. I'm so sorry." He nodded slowly, staring into the coffee like it held a memory. She loved coffee. She said it made life feel warmer, even on the coldest days. Emma sat across from him without really thinking. She didn't want to intrude, but something about his loneliness drew her in. "Do you come here often?" she asked. He shook his head. "No, I was driving by after another long day at work. My son's asleep at home with the nanny. I just needed a moment." He hesitated, then added quietly, "Sometimes silence is louder than noise, you know." Emma understood that all too well. She smiled softly. "I know exactly what you mean." For a while, they sat in silence, two strangers finding comfort in the presence of someone who didn't expect anything from them. After a few minutes, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out his phone. The screen lit up with a picture, a small boy with messy brown hair and a smile so bright it could melt anyone's heart. "That's my son, Noah," he said, his voice softening. "He's 6, smart kid, but he misses his mom." Emma looked at the picture and smiled sadly. "He looks adorable." "He is," the man said, almost whispering. "He's the only reason I keep going." For a moment, Emma saw something behind his calm face: grief, exhaustion, and love all mixed together. She didn't know his name yet, but she could tell he was someone important. Not just because of how he looked, but because of the way he carried pain, quietly, gracefully. "What about you?" he asked suddenly. "You own this place alone?" Emma nodded. "Yeah, it was my parents' dream. They passed away, and I decided to keep it running." His eyes softened. "That's brave." She smiled faintly. "It's survival." He nodded slowly, sipping his coffee. "Survival. I know that word too well." As the clock ticked toward midnight, Emma realized she hadn't felt this peaceful in a long time. Talking to a stranger should have been awkward, but with him, it wasn't. Maybe because both of them carried scars the world couldn't see. Finally, she asked, "You never told me your name." He looked up, a faint smile touching his lips. "It's Ethan Blake." The name clicked somewhere in her mind. She had seen it before. Maybe in a business magazine. Wasn't he the CEO of Blake Enterprises, one of the city's biggest companies? Her eyes widened slightly. Wait. The Ethan Blake. He smiled again, almost amused. Guilty as charged. But tonight, just Ethan. Emma chuckled softly. All right, just Ethan. When he finished his coffee, he stood up, leaving a generous tip on the table. Thank you for letting me stay. No problem, she said. Come by anytime. He hesitated at the door, then turned back. Maybe I will. And then he was gone, disappearing into the rain, leaving behind the faint smell of coffee and something else Emma couldn't name. Something that made her heart feel a little less lonely. She looked at the cup he had used, still warm, and smiled to herself. One last coffee, she whispered. Maybe not the last after all. The next morning, the cafe was busier than usual. The smell of fresh pastries filled the air as Emma worked behind the counter, her mind still lingering on the man from last night, Ethan Blake. She couldn't explain why he stayed in her thoughts. Maybe it was his quiet sadness, or the way his eyes softened when he spoke about his son. Or maybe it was just the way he said, maybe I will. She shook her head and smiled to herself. He probably won't come back, she thought. People like him don't have time for small cafes. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. At around 10 a.m., the bell above the door chimed again. Emma looked up, and froze. It was him. Ethan Blake stood at the door, dressed casually this time, no suit, no tie. Just a gray sweater and jeans. But he wasn't alone. Beside him stood a small boy with messy brown hair, holding his father's hand tightly. Emma's heart softened immediately. Good morning, she said with a surprised smile. You came back. Ethan smiled gently. Told you I might. He glanced down at his son. Emma, this is Noah. The boy hid slightly behind his father's leg, peeking out shyly. Hey there, Noah, Emma said kindly, crouching down a little to meet his eyes. Would you like some hot chocolate? He nodded silently. Ethan chuckled softly. Hot chocolate would be great. And I'll have the usual. Black coffee, no sugar. As Emma prepared their order, she couldn't help but watch the two of them. Ethan looked different today, lighter, more alive. He was watching his son with such tenderness that it made something ache inside her. When she brought their drinks, Noah's eyes widened at the sight of the whipped cream and chocolate flakes on top of his cup. For me, he asked, his voice small and sweet. Of course, Emma said warmly. Special drink for a special guest. The boy's smile could have lit up the entire cafe. As they drank, Ethan glanced around. You've got a lovely place here, he said. Feels peaceful. Thanks, Emma replied. It's my favorite kind of quiet. Noah, meanwhile, had started drawing something on a napkin with a pen he found on the table. He showed it proudly too. Emma, when she walked by, it was a little picture of a cup with steam and a smiley face. That's your cafe, Noah said. I drew it for you. Emma blinked, touched. That's beautiful, Noah. Thank you. Ethan smiled, watching the interaction quietly. For the first time in a long while, he felt something warm stir inside him, a sense of normalcy. He hadn't seen his son smile like that since before his wife passed away. After they finished their drinks, Ethan asked, Do you ever take a break? Emma laughed softly. Not really. Small business owners rarely do. Then maybe you should, he said thoughtfully. You deserve one. She smiled, amused. Are you offering to run the cafe while I rest? He chuckled. I think I'd make a terrible barista. They shared a light laugh, and for a moment, everything felt easy, as if time had stopped inside that little cafe. Before leaving, Noah ran up to the counter and hugged Emma's leg. Thank you for the chocolate, he said shyly. Emma smiled, bending down to hug him back. You're always welcome here, little man. As they left, Ethan turned back. See you around, Emma. See you, she replied softly. When the door closed behind them, Emma realized she was smiling again, a real smile, not the polite one she wore for customers. Later that week, Ethan came again. And again after that. Sometimes he brought Noah. Sometimes he came alone, usually late in the evening when the world was quiet. Their talks became longer. They talked about everything. Life, dreams, grief, and little things that didn't matter but somehow did. Ethan told her about his company, how running it without his wife's guidance had been harder than anyone knew. She used to manage their charity foundation, and now, everything felt emptier. She made life meaningful, he said one night. Now it's just numbers, meetings, and deadlines. Emma listened quietly. Maybe meaning doesn't disappear, she said softly. It just changes shape. He looked at her, as if those words touched a place he had locked away. You sound like her, he whispered. Emma didn't know what to say. Her heart ached for him, for the loneliness he carried behind that composed smile. And then, one evening, something unexpected happened. It was a rainy Thursday, much like the night they met. The cafe was closing, and Emma was stacking chairs when the door swung open again. Noah ran in, giggling, followed by Ethan, slightly out of breath and holding an umbrella. Sorry for dropping by unannounced, Ethan said, smiling. We were nearby, and Noah wanted to see you. Emma laughed. He's always welcome here. Noah ran behind the counter, looking around curiously. Can I help make coffee? He asked excitedly. Emma looked at Ethan, who shrugged with a smile. Go on, Chef Noah. She guided him gently, letting him press the buttons on the coffee machine, showing him how to froth milk, and laughing when he accidentally made more foam than coffee. When the small cup was ready, he presented it proudly to his dad. I made this one. Ethan pretended to sip dramatically. Best coffee I've ever had. Noah grinned. See, Daddy, I can help Miss Emma. The cafe filled with laughter, soft, pure, healing laughter that neither Ethan nor Emma had felt in a long time. When the rain stopped, Ethan picked Noah up and turned to Emma. His eyes met hers, warm, sincere, and something more. Thank you, he said quietly, for giving my son a smile again, and for reminding me what peace feels like. Emma's heart fluttered, but she only smiled. Anytime, Ethan, you both make this place brighter. As they left, the soft bell chimed once again. The cafe felt alive in a new way, like a place where lost hearts found light again. Emma stood by the window, watching them disappear into the soft glow of the streetlights. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew one thing for sure, Ethan Blake had changed something inside her. And maybe, just maybe, she had changed something inside him too. 2 months had passed since Ethan and Noah first walked into Hazel's Corner Cafe. The cafe wasn't just a coffee shop anymore, it had become something more. For Ethan and Noah, it was warmth. For Emma, it was joy she thought she'd lost forever. Almost every evening, Ethan would come by. Sometimes it was for a coffee, sometimes for a talk, and sometimes, just to sit in silence while Emma worked. Noah would draw, laugh, and play behind the counter, calling her Miss Emma like she was already family. Little by little, life began to feel different, softer. One evening, Emma was wiping tables when Ethan walked in alone. His usual smile wasn't there. He looked thoughtful, almost nervous. Hey, she greeted softly. No Noah today, he's with my sister tonight, Ethan replied. I needed some time to think. There was something in his tone, something serious. Emma gestured to a chair. Sit, I'll make your usual. As she prepared his black coffee, she tried not to wonder what was wrong. But when she brought it over, Ethan didn't touch it. Instead, he said quietly, Emma, I have something to tell you. Her heart skipped. Okay. He looked up at her, eyes tired but sincere. I'm leaving the company. What? She asked, surprised. I'm stepping down as CEO, he said. I realized I've been living my life inside a glass box, chasing success but losing myself. Losing time with my son. Emma sat down slowly. That's a big decision. He nodded. It is, but I think it's the right one. Then, softer, he added, and there's something else. Her breath caught. What is it? He hesitated, searching her eyes. Since the night I came here, I've felt something I haven't felt in years. Peace, warmth, hope. You reminded me of who I was before I lost her. Emma's throat tightened. Ethan, he shook his head gently. I'm not saying this to rush anything. I want you to know that you've become a part of my life. A part one don't want to lose. Tears welled in Emma's eyes, though she tried to hide them with a small smile. You don't know how much that means to me. Ethan reached out, his hand brushing hers, hesitant, respectful, but filled with emotion. Maybe it's too soon, maybe it's not. But I think we both deserve a second chance. For a long moment, they just sat there. No words, just the soft hum of the cafe lights and the distant sound of rain outside. Emma finally whispered, "You know what's funny? The night you came in, I was about to close this place for good." Ethan blinked. "What?" She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Business was slow. I was lonely. I thought maybe it was time to give up. And then, you walked in." Ethan's expression softened. "Maybe we both found this place when we needed it most." She smiled through her tears. "Maybe we did. Dash dash dash." A few days later, Ethan returned, this time with Noah, holding a bouquet of daisies. "For you, Miss Emma," Noah said brightly, handing her the flowers.